Imagine being told everything you know about teeth is wrong. We're told to floss daily, use soft brushes, and accept that cavities require a drill. Dr. Ellie Phillips has a philosophy that flips these rules. She claims her system lets you avoid the drill, stop flossing, and use medium brushes safely. As a clinical hygienist, I was skeptical. If we could actually prevent dental surgery with simple home care, I had to try it. My first attempt was a total failure. Within days, my gums started bleeding. I felt like I was failing my own profession. I shared this difficult experience online, and the response from the community was very intense. People in the dental community and followers of Dr. Ellie's method were quick to point out where I had gone wrong. Some people were quite harsh, questioning my skills because I'm currently a stay-at-home mom. They thought I had lost my clinical knowledge or that I was just trying to create drama for views. But that was not it at all. I genuinely wanted the system to work, but the negative results were staring back at me in the mirror every time I spit into the sink. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. This feedback from the community actually led to a massive discovery. I realized that the products I used weren't just similar to what Dr. Ellie recommended. They were fundamentally different. The biggest mistake was the mouthwash. I had been using acetate mouthwash with a 2% fluoride concentration. On the store shelf, it looks almost identical to the 0.05% version. To a regular person, that tiny difference in numbers might seem like absolutely nothing, but in the world of chemistry and oral health, that difference is everything. The lower concentration simply wasn't enough to provide the protection the system relies on, especially when you stop mechanical cleaning like flossing. The system requires a very specific chemical balance to work properly for everyone. This realization changed my perspective. Instead of walking away from the experiment and calling it a myth, I decided to do a deep dive. I didn't want to just try again blindly. I wanted to understand the science behind why my gums bled and why the concentration of a single rinse mattered so much. This led me to a place most people don't go. I reached out to Dr. Ellie herself. I wanted to see if a clinical hygienist and an unconventional dentist could find common ground. We set up Zoom calls and started discussing the tiny details of mouth chemistry that most people ignore. I had to put my ego aside. Even though I had years of training in traditional methods, I had to admit that maybe there was a gap in my knowledge regarding how these specific chemicals interact with the bacteria in our mouths. The controversy surrounding this system is real, because it challenges the very foundation of what we pay for at the dentist. We are taught that plaque is an enemy that must be scraped away with force. Dr. Ellie argues that it is more about the chemistry of your saliva and the balance of bacteria. If you have the right good bacteria, your teeth can actually heal themselves. If you have the bad kind, no amount of flossing will save you. This concept of a mouth microbiome is becoming more popular, but Dr. Ellie has been talking about it for decades. As I prepared for my second trial, I knew I had to be much more careful. I wasn't just testing a product anymore, I was testing a philosophy that could change how we look at oral health forever. I needed to know if I could really stop flossing without my teeth falling out or my gums becoming a disaster. I needed the absolute truth, and I was finally ready to follow the instructions exactly as they were written on the page now. After reaching out, my collaboration with Dr. Ellie began in earnest. We spent hours on Zoom calls, and I found her to be very thorough. She didn't just want me to try again. She wanted me to understand why the chemistry of the mouth is the most important factor in dental health. As a clinical hygienist, I was trained to focus on the mechanical removal of plaque. If there is junk on the teeth, you scrub it off. Dr. Ellie's approach is different. She looks at the mouth as an ecosystem. If the ecosystem is healthy, the teeth stay healthy. If the ecosystem is acidic and full of bad bacteria, no amount of scrubbing will truly prevent decay. To get a clear picture of my starting point, I used a salivary DNA test kit. This was a critical step that I skipped the first time. I wanted a bacterial baseline. I had to spit into a vial and send it off to a laboratory to see exactly what was living in my mouth. When the results came back, it was a bit of a shock. Even with my background and my usual hygiene habits, I had high levels of pathogens that are known to cause gum inflammation. Dr. Ellie explained that these bacteria were likely the reason my gums reacted so poorly during my first attempt. My mouth was essentially struggling to stay balanced, and I had been sending in the wrong reinforcements. Seeing the data on paper made it feel real. It wasn't just about how my mouth felt. It was about the invisible microbes fighting for control. I also had to document my before state physically. This was the hardest part for me. I looked in the mirror and identified areas of tartar and plaque buildup, specifically on my lower front teeth. In the dental world, we call this calculus, and it is usually removed with sharp metal instruments during a professional cleaning. Seeing that buildup and knowing I wasn't allowed to scrape it off felt like I was doing my job wrong. I had to leave it there as a benchmark. If the system worked, that tartar would either have to stop growing or change in texture. I was skeptical, but I committed to the process. I even took high-resolution photos so I could track any changes over the next 14 days. We talked a lot about the philosophy behind this routine. Traditional dentistry can be incredibly expensive and often painful. Most people go to the dentist expecting bad news and a high bill. There's a deep desire for a preventative way to handle things that allows people to take control of their own health at home. Dr. Ellie believes her system is that solution. She argues that by using specific products in a specific order, you can create an environment where cavities simply cannot form and existing ones can actually heal. The corrected protocol was much more rigorous than my first attempt. I had to use the exact products she provided, with no substitutions. The order was non-negotiable. It started with xylitol to neutralize acid throughout the day. Then, the main routine involved closis, followed by brushing with a medium bristled brush and crest cavity protection. Then came a rinse with original Listerine, and finally, the crucial 0% ACT fluoride rinse. This sequence is designed to kill harmful bacteria, clear away debris, and then flood the enamel with minerals. I felt like a scientist in my own bathroom, carefully measuring out each step. I carefully lined up the bottles on my counter, making sure I wouldn't miss a single step this time. I was no longer just a mom or a hygienist. I was a test subject in a study that could prove my entire profession's standard advice was incomplete. I started the 2-week trial with a mix of dread and hope, wondering if my gums would stay healthy this time or if I would end up with more inflammation. I was ready. The first few days of the corrected routine felt like a chemistry experiment in my bathroom. I was very careful to follow the steps exactly as Dr. Ellie instructed. I used the xylitol, then the closis, the specific brush, and the rinses in the right order. By day 3, I noticed a physical sensation that I really wasn't expecting. My teeth felt incredibly smooth. It felt smooth like glass. Usually, by the time I finish my morning coffee or have an afternoon snack, I can feel a bit of fuzz on my teeth if I run my tongue over them. That is the start of plaque buildup. But with this system, that fuzziness just didn't happen. My teeth felt like they had been professionally polished by a dental tool, and that feeling stayed with me from the moment I woke up until I went to bed. This is what Dr. Ellie calls the slick teeth phenomenon. It was a strange but satisfying feeling. It made me feel like my enamel had a shield on it that kept everything from sticking. I also started thinking a lot about the analogy Dr. Ellie uses for bad breath. She calls it the poop and perfume problem. It is a bit of a gross way to put it, but it makes perfect sense when you think about it. Most people use mouthwash like a perfume to cover up the smells of a dirty room. If your mouth has the wrong balance of bacteria, you are basically just trying to hide the odor rather than fixing the cause. This system is designed to actually clean the room. By the end of the first week, I realized my breath felt different. It wasn't that my mouth tasted like strong mint all day. It was more that it didn't taste like anything at all. It felt clean at a deep bacterial level. The usual morning breath I expected was almost entirely gone. It felt like the bad bacteria were finally losing the fight. But I had to stay honest as a clinical hygienist. As I reached the end of the 2 weeks, I decided to do a real-world check. I performed what I call the flossing test. I wanted to see if these chemicals could really replace the physical work of flossing. I took a piece of string and went between my back teeth where food usually gets trapped. Even though my mouth felt amazingly clean and smooth, the floss still pulled out physical debris. There were tiny bits of food that no rinse, no matter how balanced, was ever going to move. This was a major realization for me. While the system was doing a fantastic job of changing the chemistry and protecting my enamel, it wasn't physically removing the bulk of the waste between my teeth. You just can't rinse away a piece of food that is wedged between 2 teeth. When I looked at my before and after photos, the results were interesting. My gums looked much better. They were a pink, healthy, and clear color, and the bleeding that had happened during my first attempt was totally gone. The inflammation had settled down, and my mouth felt much more comfortable. However, the tartar I had left on my lower teeth hadn't gone anywhere. It was still there, sitting like a little rock against my gum line. I also noticed some light brown staining starting to form in the gaps between my teeth. This is a common side effect of using certain rinses if you aren't perfectly careful. For someone like me who cares about a bright white smile, that was a bit of a negative. So what is my final verdict? I believe Dr. Ellie has found something very important. Her system is a powerful way to protect your teeth so that cavities can't grow. For people who get cavities, no matter what they do, this could be the answer. But I don't think you should stop flossing. It works.